So let's bring it back in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Shout out you guys for working so hard. I saw a lot of us were in there typing and reading, getting everything done. Shout out to Jalea for getting done first. Shout out to my other Jalea for working hard. Shout out to Nassim, Marcus, Kalia. Everybody was doing a great job. Really proud of you guys. If you have not finished yet, that is fine. You will have the rest of the day to make sure that it's done, but please make sure that it is submitted before the end of the day. We are good to go. All right. So I know that chapter was really quick, really easy. So there's actually a few things that I would like to talk about as we move throughout the rest of the day. Okay. So the first thing that popped up that we talked about was we know that the Earth's atmosphere or air is made up of different types of gases, right? So who would like to tell me what are the different gases that make up air? Go ahead and tell me. Go ahead and throw that in the chat. What are the different gases that make up air? Thank you, Zakira. Thank you, Kennedy. Oh, you want to share? Go ahead and tell me what are the gases that make up air? What was that, Markel? Okay, no worries. Jalea, you want to share with us what are the gases that make up air? Henley, where you at? Why won't let me unmute you? All right, go ahead, Jalea. What are the gases that make up air? No, not letting you unmute either. Jalea, you want to share? Can't hear nobody.
The gases that make up air is nitrogen and oxygen.
Absolutely. So the gases we know that make up air are nitrogen and oxygen. And those gases just so happen to be a specific type of gas, right? So we learned that there's two different types of gases. There's permanent gases and there's also variable gases, right? So a gas in the atmosphere for which the atmosphere remains constant or stays constant. And that first one is, like we talked about, oxygen, or its scientific notation O2, and nitrogen, which is scientific notation is N2. So these are permanent gases. So if we do have these, it's okay, Markel. I thought I don't know what's wrong with your mic. I tried to unmute you, but it wasn't working. But it's okay. I know you. I know you know. I already saw your answers. So these are permanent gases. So oxygen and nitrogen, they're always in the air, and that amount stays constant and never changes. Okay. So if we do have our notebooks out, not if we do, I know we have our notebooks out. So please let's make sure that we're putting that in our notes. That permanent gases are the amount of gas in the atmosphere that remains constant, right? And that is the two most abundant are oxygen and nitrogen. Right? So the other types of gases that we talked about variable gases. So variable gases are the atmospheric gas whose amount changes based on the environment. So depending on where you are, there's different levels of gas of these types of gases or these variable gases. So who can share with me what are some type of variable gases that we learned about in the reading? Who can tell me some of the variable gases that we have? I don't remember any of the variable gases. We just did the reading. Right? So we know permanent means that it doesn't change, right? It stays exactly the same. We know variable means that the amount of it changes, right? It varies depending on the environment. So who can tell me what are the types of variable gases that we talk about? So maybe if we go back into the reading, and on the page where it talked about variable gases, on page 21, where it explains the different types of variable gases that we have. Thank you, Zamari, for going back to their notes. Ms. Coachman, would you like to share with us one of the types of variable gases that you talked about?
I say carbon dioxide.
Absolutely, carbon dioxide is one of them, all right? So carbon dioxide is actually the most popular variable gas and really one of the most important variable gases, right? So we have carbon dioxide. Does anybody know another one that we talked about? Thank you, Jakayla. So Jakayla got it perfect, right? So she put is carbon dioxide, we have methane, and we also have water vapor. And which in this I didn't put the water vapor on here, but another one that they talked about was the ozone. So these are all different types of variable gases, right? So depending on where you are in the atmosphere, these levels change and they vary. All right. So I remember, if you remember on our in our notes catcher, one of the questions asked, why are variable gases important, right? And based off of what we talked about in our previous unit, what was one of the, let me actually read the exact question for you. So it says carbon dioxide is a variable gas that helps what process? And it was a process that we talked about in one of our previous units. So what process does carbon dioxide, that particular variable gas, help with, according to the reading? And I want you to go back to page, I believe, 22. And it tells us about what. So what of these variable gases help us with one of the processes that we talked about in our previous unit, right? And a hint, it has a lot to do with plants, right? Thank you, Jalea, for your response. Think back to what we remember about our plants and how plants grow when they use sunlight and what else? So Jalea, can you go ahead and share that? Jalea Henley, go ahead and share that with the class.
Carbon dioxide helps with photosynthesis.
Thank you so much, right? So carbon dioxide actually helps with photosynthesis, right? And this is why a lot of these gases are important, because they help with different processes, right? So whereas variable gases and carbon dioxide can help with photosynthesis, we know that oxygen, which is a permanent gas, that can help with breathing and it helps us like survive, helps humans survive. So all these different gases have very important functions in our atmosphere, okay? So now that we've talked about all of the different types of gases and we've learned about what they do, I want us to go back to our main points, right? So the questions that we asked in the beginning of the unit. So, what do we think air is made of? Now that we know exactly what it's made of, who can remind me, what exactly is air made of? I want you to think back to the different types of gases that we talked about. So what exactly is air made of? Seeing a lot of responses in the chat. Still waiting for a few more. Thank you, Markel. Thank you, Jalea. Thank you, Marley. Marley, I want you to think about the gases that we talked about. So, like we said, air is made of oxygen, nitrogen, and then there's a few other variable gases. And Jalea hit it right on the head, such as methane, carbon dioxide, and also the ozone. These are other variable gases that make up air, right? Next question. Now that we've learned a little bit about what's in air, does air have mass? Does air have mass? Now that we know exactly what's in it, we know the different types of gases. Thank you, Julia Coachman. Thank you, Kyra. Nasim waiting on your response in the chat. Tim waiting on your response in the chat. Blake waiting on your response in the chat. And again, these were the main questions that we asked in the beginning. We said we were going to come back to them, right? And the answer is yes, right? We do know that air has mass because it does take up space, right? We know that gas takes up space and therefore it has mass, okay? And our last question, why is air important? Right? Why is it important? We just talked about it, right? So we talked about all the different gases and what those functions are. So why is air important? Thank you, Markel. That's a perfect answer. Thank you, Blake. And we know that air is important because it has the gases that contribute to different processes, right? So we know that you need oxygen for humans, you need CO2 for plants, and then there's other gases that do things for other organisms, and that is why air is important. All right. With that being said, great job today, guys. I know it was a lot of reading, but you actually did a phenomenal job absorbing that information. And we're going to wrap it up. And we're going to do a little bit more on to finish up the weather and water unit on Friday. But until then, you are off and you're free to go to gym. If you are in musicology, peace. They all yours, Mr. Murphy. Go ahead and stop sharing and make you host.